All right, everybody. I'm looking forward to this. We are going to watch Dan the Beast Severn. When was this? This is 1995, Dan?
Yep, 1995.
Was this your second UFC?
Yep, this would be UFC number 5, yes.
Now, unlike the UFCs of today, how many fights had you went through at this point before you got to this championship fight?
This was the old 8-man tournament format. Women were not competing at this point in time. So you had to go through 3 individuals in the same 2-hour pay-per-view that still runs to this day. Now, but let's go back in time. Think about this. You show up to the arena and you meet the other, well, you knew ahead of time the people that were involved in this, but in that no holds barred era, you would show up at a press conference because there was no weight. It didn't matter. There were no weigh-ins, but it was a press conference. But on a Friday night, you are going to meet the other 7 men for the very first time. And you can't Google anyone because Google did not exist. There was no data on any of these athletes at that point. So you were flying by the seat of your pants. I would say put that in context with today's fighter. How many of today's fighter would walk into that format? They have done so much studying on their opponents to look for their weaknesses in that to that individual style. So it just, back then, like I said, you're flying by the seat of your pants. I don't know very many athletes that would do that today. But then they're looking at trying to protect their records, and the better record that you have, and the more money that you'll be bringing in.
Well, I think another thing that amazed me, a lot of the people that watched you back then might not know that here it is, second UFC, you're in a championship fight. What are you, 37, 38 at this time?
Well, yeah, when I started at UFC number 4, I was closer to 37. I was a full-fledged 37 by this. I always tell people, I can't say I'm 36 3/4, but I was closer to 37. And so I've always gone with that, to tell people that how many athletes will ever start a cage fighting career at 37. You don't start it at 37. You think about retirement at 37. And then I went for 20 years beyond that. And when you look at, even when I did finally retire, I retired with a clause. I simply said that, okay, I'm going to retire this coming January, whatever year. I go, but if one of these 3 men, and it was right down the line, it was like a Mark Coleman, Ken Shamrock, Hoist Gracie. If one of these 3 men were to pony up to the table, I would seriously contemplate coming back out of retirement to face that match.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to it. Going into this match right here, if you can remember, Dan, like what was your feelings at that point in time? You had done fought 2 other matches. Like, were you kind of tired, or what was going on leading into this match?
Well, I mean, leading up into it, again, you try to make as short work as possible with the previous opponents. Going into it, I know that I'm up against a more formidable opponent because Dave Benito has a great wrestling pedigree, and I was a one-trick pony. All I had was my grappling ability, my wrestling ability, and he had some boxing ability on top of that. And he does catch me a couple times with some good strikes, but my whole premise is to try to get to out in the open, get into a clinch situation, or jam him up against a cage wall, or take him down. I mean, if I do one of those 3 things, I will have neutralized 90+% of his striking arsenal. Literally, that's what I would do with almost all my matches, because I was not going to win the fisticuffs. I suck at the fisticuffs.
Yeah. All right, man. I'm ready to get to it. Let's start it up and see what's going on.
He hails from Ontario, 27 years of age. Choked out only once during his judo career. Likes to incorporate whatever
this
he
is
can.
Again, Dave's got a background in amateur wrestling here right now. So a lot of guys, if they've never really competed in a public forum, this would be very intimidating because there's lots of people at these events, and people will start, their mind will start to wander. They'll start to second guess their abilities and stuff like that. So the walk to the octagon is, or could be rather, nerve-wracking for a lot of individuals. So when I would walk the cage, I just concentrated on breathing in, deep, and out, calming everything on down, because it's going to get electrified here soon. Try to keep us calm and don't waste any unnecessary energy.
Gotcha. Let me turn that up.
President of his local union of members for the city of Windsor, Ontario. He sits on a bargaining team for contract negotiations.
Now, by this time, you were used to being in front of a crowd performing.
Well, again, all over the world, I was used to it. And, most of the time, if it was for amateur wrestling, you'd be surprised how America is hated in a lot of other countries because of all the things that their country puts up, spews all kinds of propaganda about the United States. But we offer freedom, things that they don't have. So that's why most people try to come to the United States in the first place.
I got my country behind me. I'm not going to let you guys down.
Like I said, I mean, Dave's a great guy. Dave actually he's actually been to my training facility in the past in Coldwater, Michigan.
Now, was that before you guys fought?
Yeah, we did some training and stuff like that when he was just getting into it and that. So again, to finally actually go against each other, that was something different.
Oh,
but
awesome.
Again, just you put those things behind you. So like I said, he's just a good guy, awesome. and he's a practicing attorney in gosh, I forget what they said. What city out of Canada that he lives in? But he's a practicing attorney and doing very well for himself. And has a nice family going in the whole 9 yards.
Went from UFC fighter to attorney. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. He's to me, his logo should be, I'm going to fight hard for you. Literally.
Champion. 2 wins tonight. 1 as an alternate. 1 in the semifinals. And here comes Daniel Severn, who, as Jim mentioned, has turned into a totally different character.
Now, Dan, I've always wanted to ask you this. Is that actual sweat, or did you do the Triple H bottled water?
I don't know if I should release the secrets behind the curtain right there. I mean, it was a combination of a couple of different things. I had already started a professional wrestling career. As of the 92 Olympics, I had already started to professional wrestling, and I understood perception, what you perceive. And so to me, it's like going, if I splash some water on my front, splash some water on my back and stuff like that, coming out to like going, people like going, oh my God, this guy just got done working out. Look at, he's got a sweat rolling out. No, it was to give that perceived conception here right now. Deception, I guess, really is what it is.
Look at that face. That's a face of determination right there.
I always tell people I got my dastardly good looks from my father. he scared lots of people when he would just walk in the room. If you're slouched in the chair, you stood up right away. He just had that presence about him. So I always tell people. No. I mean, they did not have wrestling in the school system. He played football, played basketball. Those were 2 of the things that he did participate in. But even seeing this video, it's just seeing some of the other people that are there right now, like the lady to the right there that you just saw, Phyllis Lee, she's gone now. I've got a couple other my friends that are with me that help me do some training that. And by now, I've got a pretty good rapport with John here.
When that fence shuts and that boat slams shut, my opponent will wish he had never stepped into the octagon.
But okay, the way I make that statement, that is the same way that I parlayed from my amateur wrestling career. When I walked out to the amateur wrestling mat, I was going to do everything within my power to make you wish you had never stepped out to that mat with me. It's kind of like you are trespassing on my piece of real estate, and I'm going to run you off with every means possible. I learned, especially through freestyle and Greco, how to manipulate the wrestling mat a great deal to where I'm maintaining that center. The center is going to be behind me. I maintain that center, and I'm pushing you to the to the outside perimeters, and then I'm going to make shots, stuff like that, so that it looks like you're avoiding, competition. That, and again, get what we call a warning. That's what kind of signal you'll see in wrestling.
And here is the tail of the tape for this championship of the UFC. Benito, judo wrestling. Severn, Greco-Roman wrestling.
So Dave, was he not really known for striking?
No. He had a boxing background as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, he had boxing background. I mean, for him to have just judo and wrestling, no, he was. You'll see, he connects on a few of those too. But that's what motivates me to get to that clinch that much sooner, because he tagged me. He'll tag me a couple times early on.
Ladies and gentlemen, this will be the final match of the evening to decide.
Again, this is that unnerving time as well. Okay, the walk is one aspect, because you're just waiting and anticipation. So basically, I had a rhythm down to where I just keep walking back and forth. Deep breathing in and out, deep breathing in and out. But most of the time, I'm always looking towards the back of the cage.
Right.
Judo champion, 27 years old. He stands at 6 feet 2 inches and weighs in at 258 pounds.
I never understood why Dave actually wore like the outfit of I'll refer to it as leotards, but it's not leotards. I mean just leggings.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe it's just harder to hold on to. You might be able to move on the mat more. I don't know. To me, I wanted to wear the least amount. I always wore knee pads because most people did not know I had bad knees.
You had bad knees, but you went it without an ACL for years, right?
Well, I mean, I don't have either one of my legs don't have ACL. See, now that I'm done, I'll divulge all that. I don't have either one of my anterior cruciate ligaments. And I mean, so if I was always good for moving forward and backward, I wasn't real good at lateral motion at times.
Okay.
And there are a couple different matches where actually one of my very last UFC matches where I take a leg kick right on the knee, and you can see my whole knee just shift back and forth, and I go down because I'm thinking, what did I just do? Okay.
So even right here, you didn't have either of your ACLs?
No, I mean, Eric, now, I still have not had either one done. I mean, I'm 65 and still have not had either one done. He hit me with basically with the overhead shot. I just basically kind of tipped my head down just so he hit more on the top of the head. He hit me once or twice with those uppercuts. Again, I'm just trying to push in, keep it pressed up there just so I can get into some type of over-under position.
This will be hard for Severn. Beneteau is big and strong and does have enough wrestling background.
But that's where a lot of athletes, they don't know how to use the octagon to your benefit.
Right.
These like the stiffest part, he tagged me a good one there again as well.
Beneto's landed 2 or 3 punches thus far.
Very strong. And there you see how difficult it will be to take Severn's legs out from under him. Severn, a master at wrestling.
And the one that's saying all the nice things about master wrestling, that's the late Jeff Blatnick.
Okay.
Who's gone now. And the other gentleman is Jim Brown, again, who's gone.
Now, was Don with you ringside at this one?
Gosh.
I don't see him.
Yeah, I don't think so. I see another one of my Canadian buddies, Gaze and Coleman. I see Todd Prince. Well, see now, okay, you saw that? He just barely missed on a nice overhand. Oh, see that somehow God protects the idiot. The children, the idiots of this road, he's watched over very well over me in my career. Because trading. This was difficult for me to find time to actually train for these events.
Severn needs to work him around, but we say turn him to the center.
Now, when you went into your first UFC, what, you had 3 days of training, or was it 3 weeks?
Total 5 days of training with Al Snow, professional wrestler Al Snow. So I went over to Lime, Ohio, and I trained with Al Snow and a couple other wrestling proteges, and they had basically one old pair of boxing gloves that the guy would wear, and I just kept my hands out there just to parry strikes. I did not really throw punches per se. I threw more like hand mitts. Tried not. I didn't want to end up breaking my. I'm looking for a trip here now. I got all this weight on one foot here right now. I was thinking, okay, can I hook that leg and sweep him? Right now is all I'm thinking. Right is all I'm thinking.
There we go. He stayed up a lot longer than most of the people you go against.
Well, again, Dave got both that freestyle and Greco background, so
Yeah.
I mean, he was going to be that much more formidable and then have that boxing. And so now I'm just trying to. I've got him here. I got to keep weight on him. I'm looking for a key lock here right now. Is what I'm doing. Where I've got his wrist and arm, and just start to arch it on up. And it's actually that's a very painful. I end up. I'll say that that little key lock right there. I end up, or arm. Some people refer to it as an arm triangle. I end up, I fish a lot of my matches. Like I said, Big John was always really, really gracious about that. And on the back, the gentleman who just took the belt with got the ball cap on, Dennis Carluzzo. He was one of the big time promoters of the NWA, which stood for the National Wrestling Alliance.
Okay.
For this event, I had to get permission from UFC because the UFC did not want to have anything to do.
I read that.
If you could pause it right here, because just back it up just a little bit when both belts are on my shoulder. The NWA, I should say, the UFC did not want to have anything to do with professional wrestling. It's like, we're just the real deal. And I had to do a lot of talking and convincing to the ownership to allow the NWA belt to be carried out. And Dennis Carluzzo, who was a promoter out of New Jersey, again, he's gone now as well. He carried that belt out and when I finally won, that's the first time. You can realize that took place in 1995.
Wow.
And so, when they look at the biggest sports merger in the world, recently took place just a few months back, where you have the WWE and the UFC are now underneath the same umbrella. And I'm going, who's that first cat to have worked for both of those companies, to have won championship belts in both of those companies? So, or I should say industries. To me, the NWA belt is a much more prestigious belt because you had to be voted on by a bunch of different promoters. It's not just, it's your organization. You get to say who gets the belt. This was actually voted on by a number of different owners that bought stock into the National Wrestling Alliance. And they got a lot of mileage out of me. I think I'm in their top 5 or so of all time longest rated champions for carrying a belt. And that's where I tell people I would be on the road sometimes out of a standard 30-day month. I might be on the road 20 days, traveling from, and as a lot of times when I would wake up in the morning, I'd have to go grab my planner and to figure out, okay, first off, where am I at? And what is my job today? Am I going to be a professional wrestler later tonight? Am I going to be walking out to the mats working with kids? Am I going to be working with law enforcement, corrections, air marshal, border patrol, military? Because I do a ground combatives program for each of those industries, but all depending upon the equipment that they wear. I always tell people that I'm very quick to come up with alternatives. Even when I first got involved in law enforcement, the gentleman that reached out to me from Arizona, he's like, he goes, what do I know about law enforcement, stuff like that? I go, I know nothing. I go, I've never been through any of your defensive tactics classes or things of that nature. But I just told the gentleman, I said, if you bring me in and so just bring me in. If I can't help you out, you owe me nothing. But if I can't help you out, we'll talk at that point. So I came in, they showed me what all they had going. I'm like going, oh, can I improve this? I mean, I did things where I could take a 100-pound female officer, and just by doing one technique that is a modification from freestyle wrestling and brought it over to the law enforcement world, that a 100-pound female officer could have a 300+ pound, 6'4", whatever, bad guy down on the ground, and she would have him screaming out with one arm.
Dan, let me ask you, I mean, everybody already knew you were legit anyway, but winning this belt at the UFC and then taking that back to pro wrestling, what kind of respect did that give you when you went in the locker room?
Well, I mean, well, I don't. In a lot of ways, I don't think I ever had a chance to let it resonate with me, because come the next day, I'm traveling to either back home or on to the next state. Very rarely now something like this, I would not have anything scheduled, but typically when I go to an area, if I know I'm going to work with a high school amateur wrestling program, I'll also see, are there any other martial arts studios in or around the area that might have a judo class, jiu-jitsu class, gi work, non-gi work, because non-gi submission grappling is soaring right now. And I just always look for other opportunities to do other things, because once my 24 hours is gone, then I pulled out one paycheck, two paychecks, or three paychecks. Even when I was working for the WWE at the time, I would fly in early because, again, I had a very unique contract. I simply contacted travel. I would fly in early that morning. I may go do a speaking engagement or may do a seminar, something like that, early in the morning. And then I go to the building later that day for the actual professional wrestling show. And then when the show is done, maybe I go off to a sports bar or something else and do one more thing for the evening. So my 24 hours is gone. But instead of pulling down just one paycheck, I pulled down two or three paychecks. So the sacrifice was my family. And in a lot of ways, if you want to be successful at anything, it usually is at a price. What price will that be? It just all depends. Like, I was married, had a young family. And so I was like the Phantom of the Opera. I tried the best I could, like say Monday through Thursday, I'm doing what I call the daddy deal. I'm in the house. They're in the house. I'm making breakfast for them. So I'm interacting with them, even though they're asleep. Try to get them up, get them going. They're asleep and they're eating their breakfast. And then I'll if they're not jumping on a bus, I'll take them to school. And then I come back up and I'm engaging my day. My training facility is like 50 yards from my home. But my kids would never see me because by the time they would get home, my first kids class would be starting. Now, I tried to get my kids to be involved in the youth classes as much as possible because I wanted them to learn, gymnastics and all the things that I was teaching in those classes as well. But at the same token, I cannot treat them any differently because I don't want to be looked upon as showing favoritism. So I basically treat them like everybody else. So they got treated like everyone else. But by the time, the kids' classes get done, now I'm working on my adult classes. Typically, last class, it's at 9 o'clock. I could never walk out of my building at 9 o'clock because there's always a straggler. There's that straggler that's taking too long, the change and stuff like that, or they need to talk to me about their financial woes and they can't pay me, this month's tuition, things of that nature. As I go on, so I have to listen to these stories. And so it's going to be 9:30, 10 o'clock. My kids are asleep. So I walk in. I'll go into each of the rooms, either tuck up the covers or something like that, give a kiss on the forehead. But do they know that? No, because I was like the Phantom of the Opera. Gotcha. But they just don't know. But now fast forward to today, they're all working, and they have a couple of them have their families of their own, and now they're starting to realize some of the things that I have done, or they get a chance to see some of these different interviews because, a lot of ways I wasn't able to tell them this kind of stuff. A couple of them have made the road trip from hell with me because I want them to understand that if you drop in the vehicle with Dad, we're going to drive. Like, for example, I've driven from Coldwater, Michigan to Fountain Hills, Arizona, hundreds of times. I simply know it's 1,850 miles, which means how long is that going to take? All depends on the weather. I've had different problems with tornadoes or bad weather conditions or whiteout conditions that tend to slow me down a little bit, but I'll get there eventually. Keyword is eventually.
Gotcha. Well, man, I enjoyed watching this. I think we're going to need to do it again.
I still have that little cardboard sign right there.
Oh, do you?
Wow. From Wow Promotions. Yeah.
Oh, that is so neat, man. Now, what is the difference in the zeros in that check then versus what they would get now in a championship match?
Let's just put a couple more zeros on there.
Couple.
Yeah, no, I mean the guys today's. I mean, it's actually public knowledge. I'm gonna just Google what if you're in the main event. It'll be like a guarantee. Your guarantee might be a couple 100,000 or something like that, $250,000 or better. You know, just all depends on who you are. And if you win, you know, you'll get a piece of the pay-per-view. And as long as you're a little bit animated in your pre-fight type of promos and stuff like that, like Conor McGregor, he's very animated, and they'll get more pay-per-views because of his animation, you know.
How much do you think guys like Conor and the other ones that hype up the fights, how many of them do you think really took that from pro wrestling?
Well, I think there's an element of it. I used to recommend it all the time. Like if you're an MMA fighter, I would tell them, take 1 or 2 classes in professional wrestling, 101 and 102. It will teach you certain aspects about how to entertain that crowd, how to draw them in, but then also teaches you that psychology of, do I want to come off as a baby face or do I want to come off as a heel? Being a heel is a lot more fun, and people will pay more hoping that you get your butt beat as being a heel as well. So when you look at professional wrestling, some of the greats that have been that heel character, they always go out there and they just, you know, it's like that Steinley whiplash, you know. So it's a lot of fun, you know. But again, using that psychology from there, and I'll say that a number of the younger fighters now, I think, have learned that, and they know how to monetize from that. But then also, you've got YouTube. You've got all these social media formats to where you can monetize on your name and reputation if you do it right. Even on a collegiate level now, as of this year, on the NCAA side of wrestling, I don't know if it's for all sports, but I know it definitely affects wrestling. I'm sure it probably affects all the other sports because wrestling tends to be behind. As a wrestler nowadays, you can monetize on your credentials. If you were a very successful high school wrestler, literally, it comes down to a bidding war of actual money to bring you there. I can't just simply what they had to offer before is I can only give you a full scholarship. Anything over that is illegal. Can't give you a car, can't do nothing else at that point. They can't give you a suitcase of cash, but now they can do all of the above. Absolutely. Car, house, suitcase of cash, the whole 9 yards. So it's the sport has changed, and there are some things that I'll be divulging here soon, of which I'm trying to work with Arizona State University and to help preserve their program for indefinitely. So,
Dan, I enjoyed this. Guys, tell us, there's a lot more fights that we could watch. Which one would you like to see next? We got Abbott, we got Shamrock. Name some of the fights, Dan. You've only had a few.
Well, yeah, I'll just say that I've had quite a few. When you look at fighters exceeding the realm of 100 matches, I'm one of 3 individuals that have exceeded the 100 match mark. Travis Fulton and Shannon Rich are the other 2, but Travis Fulton is gone. Kind of a sad scenario there. I won't even address, but he's gone. And I fought Travis, I think, 3 different times. And then Shannon Rich, I fought him before, then we become friends, and we're on other types of shows and stuff like that together. And Shannon would have been a great professional wrestler. I think that was his real calling, because he had the shtick down when he would go out there. He had like a All-American sleeveless shirt. He had a top hat on. I mean, it was great. And he was doing this as a MMA fighter. So he had the whole shtick down. I mean, he could have easily transferred over into the wacky world of professional wrestling.
Well, and I'd just like to say, man, out of all the MMA fighters that I've met, with you having that record, you know, top 3 most fights of all time, you're one of the only ones I've met that doesn't have cauliflower ear. That's saying something.
When I was working out, I always wore headgear. I didn't want my career to come to an end, and then I'd have this narrowed up looking ear, because what happens as one, especially as a man gets older, the hairline keeps receding up. I always tell people I used to have a 4-head. I have more like a 5-head, 6-head now, because it is going back. But your hairline starts going back and your ears are being exposed. And what hair that was once here on top, it's going to either come out of your ears, come out of your nose, or it goes to every place else except for where you would really want it.
Well, guys, tell us which fight you'd like to see, and let's do this again, Dan.
Yes, sounds good.